Namaste. Welcome to Sipping on Stories podcast. I'm your host Sehereen, and this is where we welcome women healers and spiritual leaders from all around the world to come and share their journeys and their experiences. Thank you so much, everyone, for showing lots of love to our podcast episodes. And if you're new to this channel, welcome. Please like and subscribe to this channel so we can continue spreading some love. Thank you. Namaste, Aether. Welcome to Sipping on Stories podcast. I am extremely happy to have you here today. And I love your smile. And with that, I want you to really tell me where you're joining us from today and the choice of beverage you've got.
Okay, so I am currently in Queensland. I am north of Brisbane, and my beverage for today is coffee.
Awesome. Cheers. I've got some green tea here, so awesome. All right, great. Caffeine just wakes me up and I'm like alert and I can't sleep. The green tea it is. Awesome. Thanks, Aether. Look, I know that we kind of, touched base a long time ago, and I was kind of fascinated in terms of the kind of work you do, and I'm really interested in finding out more about your work and how you are going about and helping people. And of course, would love to hear what your spiritual journey has been like as well. So why don't we just get started off and we'll go ahead and just explore frequencies really. So how do you define frequency in the context of your work, and how do you kind of perceive and, interpret these frequencies in others or your clients?
Okay. If I were to describe frequency, I would literally call it a universal substance. It, in its most primary form, is movement. When it comes to tuning into people, we can then start breaking down this movement into specific categories. Like when I'm tuning into someone, is the energy mental? Is it emotional? Does it have to do with their physical body? But ultimately, very fundamentally, it is simply movement.
Okay. That's really simply put. I have never kind of come across that definition, and it makes sense totally. And can you kind of share a moment when you were tuning into someone's frequency and, that profoundly changed, their path or their perspective towards, what they were kind of coming to you for? Like, so if you can shed some light in that space.
Absolutely. So I feel like there are so many moments that I could choose for this, because when you're working with something that is non-tangible and literally connected everyone, to those whose minds have not yet broached this kind of understanding, it can be a shock. I'm aware that there are so many beings out there that still aren't open to the fact that we are literally one connective frequency. We're one vibration. So when you're tuning into someone and they think that nobody knows anything about them, they're this individual being, and all of a sudden you tune into them and then you tell them exactly how they're experiencing, that in itself can provide the most wild reactions. So I find that this happens on a very regular basis, to be fair.
Wow. Any juicy stories you've got that you can share with us today?
I find that the most joyful ones happen unexpectedly. So in very mundane places, like being at the gym. So I could be having a really good gym session. I'll go and have a conversation with someone because I love talking to people. And we'll get into the question about, what do you do for work? And this always comes up because it's what we do. And then the question which always comes after that, which is, can you read for me? Can you do a reading on me? And it's like, it's in the middle of the day, we're at the gym, but sure. And then literally being able to do just that, being able to feel into them and then give them information and things that our conversation physically has not yet even covered. And just to be able to see their reactions and just the awareness bloom in their face and in their feeling, it is always entertaining.
Right. I have like a little question here, which kind of popped up in my head. Sometimes when you're in this path, you can read certain energies, you can read frequencies, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot more you see than a person who does not have these abilities cannot see. And when you do kind of go ahead and tell people and tell them that what is that you do, and they ask you for a reading, like you said, in the middle of the day, like you're in a gym. So what do you kind of feel like? Do you feel like, oh my God, like maybe I need, is like people just kind of like want to kind of know all the time what's happening. They want a reading all the time. Do you kind of like get annoyed as well? Because just kind of you from your perspective, because I would do that too if I kind of came across somebody and they have this special gift and be like, oh my God, can you do this for me? And without even realizing in what kind of situation or moment I might be asking this question. So what is like your kind of reaction at that point? I just from your, just want to know.
Honestly, I absolutely love it. I absolutely love being able to open someone else's awareness to realize again that we're not disconnected. We are
Mm,
always able to access this kind of information. And yes, I'm a being who can consciously tune in and understand the information that I'm receiving. But ultimately, I don't feel that that makes me special in any way. Like, if I were very clear and honest, I feel like we are all special. We all have access to this information because we are all having this sensory experience.
mm.
Whether we consciously develop this skill or not, that varies across everybody's journey because we're all here to do different things.
Yep, absolutely. And I guess destiny plays a big part in it too. So if you're meant to do that work, you'll be pushed into it, I guess.
Mm.
Awesome. So let's kind of get into a little more of the personal insights, right? I want to kind of you to tell us or tell our listeners and viewers, how has your own spiritual journey, shaped you for the kind of work you do today? And what lessons have you kind of learned on this journey as you were helping others and in their paths?
I feel like the inner knowing and guidance has always been there. We're all spiritual beings, we're all energetic beings. I feel like on the beginning of this path, when I first started becoming aware, I first started observing myself, that that spiritual guidance wasn't as strong, or I wasn't listening to it as much. Whereas I feel now, obviously, it is something I'm a lot more attuned to, and it literally, well, it guides everything that I do. Every time I make a decision or I think about doing something, I feel into it as well. It's not just a mental process, is this what I want to do? Is this what I feel like I should be doing?
Yeah.
So it definitely plays a major role in the choices that I make.
Yeah, absolutely. And where did it all began with her? So when did you kind of start realizing that this is the path for you?
Very early on, there was always an interest in these kinds of things. So I had a nana who was very, very spiritually inclined, and not just energetically tuned in, but very mentally capable. Like, they were just a very smart individual. And it was something that always intrigued me, but I didn't have the willpower to focus on it and to develop it at that time because I was young and my focuses were just elsewhere. So when it got to the point where I could start making decisions for myself confidently, I started questioning my actions more. I started recognizing the ways in which I was imitating others and picking up on the energy of others, and recognize that it was something that I was doing. There are moments where in situations I was literally just recreating patterns of someone else entirely. And as soon as that came to light, as soon as my awareness came upon it, I started questioning it and asking, what is really my movements? What are
Yeah.
my choices?
Yeah.
And what are everybody else's?
Mm-hmm. Interesting, isn't it? And where do you kind of stand on self-awareness, and why do you think it is so important for one person or for one being to kind of cultivate that?
The more aware you become of yourself and what you're doing, the more you realize that you're not actually a victim to circumstance, and that you always have a choice in the matter, regardless whether it's a choice to change how you think, change how you feel, or change the physical actions that you're doing. You always are impacting yourself and your environment.
Hmm. Yep. And why is it so important to actually be self-aware?
Because it helps us to realize that. It helps us. And similarly, like when I was beginning my journey, I was picking up on patterns that weren't even my own. So imagine the amount of beings out there that are literally just assimilating their environment and being someone that they're not. The more aware you can become of yourself, the more true you can become to a version of you that perhaps you don't even know yet. Perhaps you
Yeah.
don't know where you are. And there was a point in my journey where I didn't. I'd completely forgotten. So through taking moments of self-observation and reflection and then consciously willing things to happen, I was able to regain that
Mm.
power, which was ultimately always there. It just
Yeah.
wasn't being utilized.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are some of the tools that you actually used in your journey of becoming self-aware? So, as you said, you took some time to reflect and in isolation. So, what are some of the tools that you actually used to kind of go deeper within?
Okay. There are a few different things, some physical things like journaling. Tarot was a great one because it helped me to realize how I was affecting my environment, how I was connected to it. But I feel like a strength in mind is also very, very important, and developing a strength in willpower as well. Because I remember there are times where I didn't want to sit down and, reflect on the self, but ultimately it was the thing that was most beneficial for me at the time. So having the strength to constantly choose yourself, to constantly choose to be self-aware definitely makes a difference.
Yep, absolutely. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I would love for you to talk about what is that you do, Ether, in terms of how you help people. Just kind of diving a bit more deeper into your work, because I think you mentioned tarot, and I think it's a great kind of segue to get into talking about tarot, talking about artistry, and how they complement each other in helping and connecting with the higher self as well. So if you can kind of go a bit more deeper into how you kind of help people, and what is this divine work that you're actually doing? So please share with us.
Okay. Tarot is a tool. It's a universal tool that people use in order to read energy. So when I use tarot, it provides a physical story for people to follow, because when I tune into someone, I experience them in feeling and in senses that are in higher mind. But obviously, physically, people aren't experiencing that. They're just looking at a human who is spouting words out of their mouth. So having a physical tool like tarot allows people to actually connect the story to themselves. When it comes to the artistry, here's where it gets a bit more personal, because not only is it the energy of someone that I'm tuning into, but it is coming through myself. It is coming through my energy, through my hand, and is formed in a geometric style, which then is interpreted in the same way as tarot, but with a twist.
Interesting. Yeah, I would love to kind of dive a bit more deeper and kind of expand that, the artistry part of things. So if you can give me a bit more kind of insight into what that entails and how you kind of go about doing it. And if I'm kind of more intrigued on that, and if our listeners and viewers are intrigued, where can they go and find more information? Is there a book you can recommend, or any resources you can recommend? So I would love to know that.
Okay. So the artistry element of it, like I stated with frequency, it's all movement, and drawing itself is also movement. It is literally just a variety of dots and lines and curves on a page, which are then to be interpreted. So I discovered this was a possible medium after first developing a passion for drawing. It is something similarly like the spiritual journey that just kept on recurring until we decided to fully lean into it.
Mm-hmm.
And we also met another individual at a fair who was doing something very similar. They were tuning into beings and then drawing what they received in information. So when I tune into someone, I get images. I get images and I get feeling. And then I literally put those straight from my mind onto a page. Now, the information that we get from this isn't just the symbols that are in the drawing itself, but the entire process of it. So it's when I'm drawing, do I feel like something is hard to do? Perhaps the left side of the page was easier to draw than the right side. Every little process of this requires so much observation, so much conscious focus, because every single element of it is a
Mm.
reflection of the energy that I'm tuning into.
Yeah, really interesting. So, I've been to many kind of these fairs or events that happen in and around the city, and especially the spiritual fairs or events. And I do find people there who will say, "Look, I'll draw your spirit guides. I will," and they kind of tune into it. And okay, so I understand because I've seen this and had got one done for myself. And at that time, I had no idea what was happening. So I think this kind of gives me more clarity on what actually kind of was happening and how the person was tuning into those energies. And absolutely, there's a lot of focus that goes into it because I saw this lady kind of just zoned into it and going on and just kind of sketching it out. I have it somewhere in my room, but I can't find it now. But that was an interesting experience. I've had that I got it done many years ago, and it was. She said that this was your kind of spirit guide, which was from Atlantis era. So I have no idea till date what that meant, and I was a bit more like shy to kind of go up and ask her more information about it because she had a lot of people queuing up. So maybe, today's the day, maybe I can ask you. So what that kind of references to, or if you can maybe infer anything out of that, um, let me know.
Okay. From what I perceive about our experience so far, is that the entirety of this place is one energetic system. It is one being. However, it displays itself through an infinite variety of forms. That means you as a human, me, animals, plants, anything that we experience is the one system. That includes the things that we can experience in this physical density or energetic beings that aren't formed in this realm. That's where spirit guides and other enlightened beings come into play.
Hmm.
From what I understand about these spiritual guides, they are still us, because again, we're the entirety of this system, but they come through in specific forms that are comfortable to us. Even if we don't fully understand it at the time, they are there to literally provide information that perhaps, well, we'll be ready for at one point in time. I feel like the whole point of us being here is to remember, to
Mhm.
remember the nature of us. Obviously, our journeys, because we are all so incredibly different, is going to vary. Everyone's path towards that is going to look different, but it's the same thing. It's a remembrance of what we are and what we're capable of.
Yeah.
And I do believe that these energetic beings, or some of them, I'm not going to say all of them because infinite possibilities, I'm sure some of them don't have the greatest intentions, but I say that there are those out there that are wanting to aid in the process because they are in a way of understanding that we are
Hmm.
not here.
Yeah. It's very interesting, isn't it? Like, are there's so much happening out there, and as you said, they're not very nice energies, and they're good ones too, and they're not bad ones too out there. But there's so much, there's so much people can tap into without knowing. So how do you kind of stay grounded and knowing that every second or every minute that you are in the right path? And I can imagine it's a very difficult path, right? And you're working with energy. You have to always be like alert and making sure that there are no other kind of energies influencing you. So how do you kind of stay grounded? And what would you advise for our viewers or who are maybe spiritually awakening or who are into the energy path? What are some of the things they can do to stay grounded?
Okay. Presence, definitely taking the opportunity to tune into yourself and ask yourself, like stated earlier, am I being myself or am I
Mm-hmm.
allowing myself to be affected by everything around me? So that takes obviously an understanding of the self, of your own individual likes, dislikes, desires, the things that you actually want to have around you, the people. So understanding your own systems is very important. But I also want to state that this path isn't linear and it is a constant process of adapting. It's not going to be here, I'm on the path and I'm always going to be on the path. It is constantly facing decisions where you have to say no to this and yes to this and yes to that and no to that. But it is easiest to do this when you're actually present, when you're accepting who you are, where you are, and perhaps that might not be where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But this is brilliant because as soon as you accept this, you can do something about it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I think from here, what I want to ask you is that what actually, and you said that this has always been in your kind of being, in your nature, but what kind of drew you to these kind of modalities and how they have kind of evolved in your practice?
This feels like Pandora's box. Once you open this, there is no putting the lid back on. Once you become aware as a physical being that you're not limited to a physical capacity, it is something that just keeps expanding. And it almost feels like the soul or the energy has a constant drive to understand and to want to see more. And this is where for some people it can get difficult because if we go back to the fact that we're all the same system, we're all one thing, that includes everything.
Yeah.
That includes everything that the mind can judge as good, as bad, as, terrible, and as brilliant. It encompasses every conditioned thing. And for those who aren't yet ready to face and accept those parts, it can get difficult because it means pushing things down, saying that these aren't okay or these aren't accepted.
Right. Cool. So yeah, I understand. And since you have kind of been, drawn to this, it's been in your true nature. And as you said, you just can't stop. You only have to kind of seek further insights and just grow and grow and learn and learn. So yeah, thank you for that. And I think from here, Aether, I really, as I have told you, that Sipping on Stories podcast is kind of, its goal is to bring, amazing women like yourself to come and share their experiences and journeys. Because my only wish is that this reaches as many people as it can in the world, so they may be inspired by wonderful women like yourself. So for those who are, navigating spiritual awakening, how can understanding the frequency, guide them towards clarity and alignment is my question. So how can they, understand this path? What would you recommend?
I feel like we all innately know, whether we want to accept that or not, we all innately know what is best for us, whether that means going out connecting with others or isolating the self, whether it means listening to podcasts to get information or just sitting with yourself because you don't know what to do. We all innately have that feeling. So I highly recommend building trust in the self, building trust in the feeling and one's own ability to literally guide the self. Because like I said, we all know what is best for us.
And how we can do this is through meditations, connecting with the higher self on a daily basis. How can one kind of know this, kind of knowing that it's there within me, and how can they kind of navigate through it?
I highly recommend meditation, although that comes in different forms. It's not always going to be sitting down and being silent for people. For some people, it's running so that they can become aware of themselves. But ultimately, it's tuning into how they feel, tuning into the things that already exist, like feeling, like the senses.
Yeah, I guess, one of the things I like to do is just kind of sit down and even have my eyes open, because sometimes I can't close my eyes and meditate. I get distracted too easily. And just sitting down and quiet in a quiet space and having my eyes open and just feeling what's happening in my surrounding. Like, is there any sound? Are my cats like just fighting like crazy people, crazy animals, people? or it's like the birds chirping, and what's happening within my body as well. Like, so I kind of do that and just become aware of the sounds, the movements around me and inside me. And I think that has really helped me to kind of gain that self-awareness as well. So I guess that was one kind of exercise that I do. I just wanted to kind of put it out there.
Mhm. I feel like that definitely delves in further and builds upon this. So thank you.
Yeah, awesome. All right. And what advice would you give to someone who feels stuck or disconnected from their true path?
Please, in all kindness, move out of your own way. Again, we all innately know what we want. Whether we want to feel into that and accept it or not, entirely different matter. But we all know what it is that we're drawn to. So simply by observing our environment and asking how we feel about it, we can gain insight to ourselves. So again, presence. Be present. Look at what you're surrounded by. Tune into how you're feeling. Where do you want to go from there? What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? And what are you willing to do to get there? These are all questions that you can ask yourself. And which direction you go in is entirely up to you. Every single moment that we exist, we have infinite possibilities available to us, infinite pathways that we can take if we're willing to just open our minds a bit more to what is out there.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I know I'm going to sidetrack a little bit, but I was very keen from the beginning of the podcast to ask you what your tattoos mean.
Mm-hmm.
I see
Okay.
that you've got like a snake on your arm, and I'm not sure what is in the middle. So tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. So I think I have 14 tattoos now, and they will grow, I have no doubt. But every time we have gone through a significant change in the self, whether it be a mental change or a physical change, we have put a mark on our body to remind ourselves of that specific lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So the snake specifically felt like the integration of self. It is a yin and yang concept, an understanding of the necessity of everything, regardless of its condition as good or bad, brilliant or terrible. Every single thing is necessary and every single thing is a part of us. And by understanding our connection to it and how we feel about it, we literally understand ourselves as an individual better.
Nice. It's a constant reminder. I love that. And what does this mean just in the middle of your chest? What tattoo is that? What does it mean?
This is Excalibur. So it is the sword that King Arthur pulls out of the stone when he recognizes and realizes his own worth.
Wow. Very powerful, Ita, very powerful.
So for me as an individual, it reminds me not only my worth, but it is a constant reminder to be honest, to be clear, to be straightforward, because honestly, that is the easiest way to exist. When you're not concerned about all of the narratives that you have to keep holding up, just by being clear and honest, you build an integrity of character that people are then able to trust because they know that your word and your energy is true.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I got a bit sidetracked, so apologies, but I just couldn't stop myself and I had to ask you. So, all right, thank you for sharing. I was as we were talking through the artistry side of things, and I shared some of my personal insights in what I have been experienced or have kind of had exposure to at once, but I truly did not understand how that kind of took place or how that worked. And kind of continuing that, I also have seen, when I'm scrolling through Facebook or scrolling through Instagram, I see uh, where people, psychics or energy readers, they kind of claim that we can draw your soulmate. I'm pretty sure you've come across this as well. So I just want to kind of ask, is that first of all, is it possible? And what your experience has, your kind of opinion or what your feeling is towards that kind of space as well.
So in regards to the drawing your soulmate, I believe it's well, a double-edged sword. So I have no doubt that there are beings out there that are capable of tuning in and drawing in the likeness of specific people. But I also feel like as conscious creators, we are literally forming things into our reality. And by being given an image and you're completely open and you have no idea what this being is going to look like, your mind can then actively begin tuning into this image and creating it in our reality. So perhaps it wasn't even going to occur until you experienced that drawing and then created that person for yourself. So I have no doubt that it's certainly possible that people could tune in and draw someone, but I also believe that the human mind is very brilliant and very capable of creating these things for itself.
That's,
So
yeah, very interesting perspective. Yeah, okay. I'm just like, what if that person is like turned out to be not so good looking and just joking. Yeah, all right. But that is very interesting, right? Like a human mind is it's so powerful than we think it is, and how we are able to kind of manifest things into our reality, and that's why it is so important to kind of pay attention to your thoughts, and uh, and why it is important to stay positive, I guess. You always have your elders telling you, especially, you have like, just stay positive, be positive, have good thoughts. And there's a reason why it is, because your mind is always creating these amazing things into your reality and you always want them to be good. So it makes sense. Makes sense. Totally. Wow. Okay. And in the journey of self-understanding, what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about self-awareness and spiritual growth from your perspective?
okay. Although we are one being experiencing this place, because we have individual forms, it looks different for everyone. Spiritual awakening isn't always going to come from meditation for people. It isn't going to look like something textbook. Trust your process.
Mm.
Again, it goes back to the feeling because it's going to be different for everyone. What are the biggest misconceptions? It's not crazy.
Have people told you that?
I feel like there are definitely people out there that think it's a scam, for sure. People that think that you're crazy or you have no idea what you're dealing with. And this is why it requires a lot of trust and a lot of time spent with self so that you can really believe what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you're experiencing it, so that should be enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess just because you cannot see energies or you can't feel, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. You just need to become more kind of remove that layer, that extra layer, or of your I don't know, like your intuition, have kind of sharpen your intuition and to kind of feel and tune into these things. And yeah, and I agree, right? And I have heard people in my own family like, it's a scam, like what are you talking about? Because some people are either very logic based, they are like, we just believe in scientific facts, and I'm like, yeah, but energy is scientifically proven, there's always energy there. So but I get you, totally get you. And this is one of the misconceptions I've kind of come across myself too. So that's interesting. Okay. So now with this said, how do you encourage people to embrace, both their light and shadow sides in the journey towards the highest being, towards their highest beings?
Everything is you. Absolutely everything. This means by understanding how you react to things, you understand obviously how you feel about yourself. So what I'd recommend is facing all areas, including the things that you're terrified about. Where you experience something that you're afraid of, you have an opportunity to learn something about yourself. You have an opportunity to change. So I'd say if there is something that you have immense feeling about, open it, discover why, be curious, because in the space of absolute nothingness, there is infinite possibility. You could shine a light in that darkness and find something you've never experienced before. But if you keep yourself stuck in fear, you'll never find out, but it will not satiate the curiosity. That'll always exist. So it's up to you whether you want to be brave enough and be bold enough to face that part of yourself, or whether you want to keep yourself in the dark.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully said. Thank you so much. All right, great. Like, where does time go? Time just flies when you're having an interesting conversation. So awesome. Thank you so much, Aether, for bringing your insights and amazing words to this podcast today. And unfortunately, this is all the time we have today. And I've really enjoyed this conversation with you today, and really kind of felt, a bit more light and a bit more kind of intrigued and also shocked with, certain things. So thank you so much. And I hope that our listeners and viewers feel the same. And they continue to kind of embrace the light and continue in the path of recognizing, self-awareness and kind of building that and working towards that. So that's my really hope. But if you have any final words that you want to leave us with today, go for it.
Well, first off, I'm very grateful that you've had me here. I'm always so stoked to have an opportunity to share what we do, and again, to open more aspects of us to the nature of us. Final words. This whole place is us, every single bit of it. And by facing it, by observing it, by feeling into it, you can discover so much about yourself as an individual and as the whole system. So go have fun, go enjoy yourself, make this place what you want it to be, because you can do that.
Amazing. Cheers. Well said. I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Aether. Again, thank you so much for coming on Sipping on Stories. You have an amazing evening, and stay cool.
Thank you.